This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
It is 6:02. I will now call to order the March 11th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Cassie, do you have any other housekeeping items to go over?
No, only to say that if folks want to, when you join the meeting virtually, you won't have access to share your screen or unmute yourself or use your camera until I provide you that access, but you can utilize the chat if you'd like to do so, or if you have something you want to communicate to the agent, myself. And then otherwise, that should be it. Oh, if there's an interruption, as you said, we will continue all the items to the next meeting administratively and won't continue virtually or in person. But yeah, otherwise that's it.
Great, thank you. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items?
I have not received any though. I know I see some folks here online and then folks here in attendance who may be here for a non-agenda item.
So I'm here to talk about, my name is Kathy Brzezinski. I live at 22 Overlook Drive. I'm here to express my concerns about the sheer volume of development that not just this board, but all of the boards have been approving. It really is sort of stabbing the soul of this city in the back by approving all of this development. In looking at the developments that are proposed, it looks like it'll add close to 400 or 450 units of housing to our city in the next 5 to 6 years, which averages about another 1,200 people. The city is already overcrowded. We've lost way too much of our farmland already. We've lost way too much of our open space. And I think if all of the city committees continue to rubber stamp these developments, will be in, no one wants to stay here. And that's really sad, particularly for those people that grew up here and wanted to stay a small city or would prefer it to be a town. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I will say that the jurisdiction of this commission is not such that we have the right to deny a permit that is in keeping with the regulations. So our job is to make sure that all of the regulations are adhered to. We did spend over a year reviewing the last major development that came before this board, so we do take that very seriously. Our other function is as the open space committee. And so we do also look for opportunities to help push the city to acquire new open spaces and to assist in managing the ones that we have. But I appreciate your insight and comment, and thank you for being here.
Okay, does anybody else have a public comment? Maybe also in attendance here in person, or I see some folks online who might not be for the next item. If you would like to make a comment, you can use the raise hand function on the screen here. Just adding another person to the left of the leave call button is the hand button. You can click on if you want to do that, or you can use the chat function to let us know that you have wanted to say something.
Hearing and seeing no further comments, we'll move on to public hearings, of which we have none this evening. So we'll move to requests for certificates of compliance. The first item there is City of Easthampton, Mass DEP file number 151302 for pump house demolition activities adjacent to Lower Mill Pond, map 136, lots 97, 98, and 99.
I have no updates for this, unfortunately, yet. I'm still waiting on the city engineer. But hopefully that will be forthcoming soon.
Do we still have a city engineer? I mean, do we still have the old city engineer, or do we have the new one?
There's no change in the city engineering department.
The planner.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good question. Thanks for asking. No, so I would ask if the commission can consider, unless there's any other questions, taking item 6D out of agenda order, because that's the only other item that we have people in attendance for.
Okay.
Motion to take 6D out of order.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
August?
Aye.
Carr? Weeks? Motion carries. So we'll move to item 6D under enforcement actions. Loudville Condominiums LLC, 6973 Loudville Road, map 140, 139, lot 28 and 29/11. We have someone here to speak for this matter, or Cassie, do you want to give an update first?
I guess it's, if the applicant wants me to, I'm happy to give a little brief explanation of what you guys are here for right now, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, that would be fine, Cassie.
It's very quiet.
Hang on a second. We need to make some adjustments to the sound. You're very quiet.
I don't know. I also gave co-host ability to Rob and Joe. So if you want to try speaking, just it might. I don't know if it's just Philippe on your end or if it's our end.
Hello.
Well, that sounds better.
You're a little better, Rob.
Oh, great. Okay.
Let us see if we can turn up the volume on our side. Give us just a second.
Thank you, guys.
It's mostly maxed out.
Yeah. Output.
I just unplugged my headphones, so that might be
Try a
better now.
different, the internal, I don't know what it's coming out of.
I just switched it to this. Let's see if that would be better. Can you try something to say something else, Philippe?
How about now?
Can
Testing,
you try Rob?
testing.
It's better. I apologize.
What's the other,
What's
what's
like
the
output USB? I don't know.
One more test, please. Nothing.
Can't hear.
All right, not that one.
Well, he was muted that time.
Yeah, I was muted.
We're just gonna ask you to yell into your microphones.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you want me to give an
We'll try to
overview,
fix it
please?
up for next time.
Sure.
It should be captured in the recording, certainly. Yeah, at the very least. But yeah, we might need you to repeat things, unfortunately.
Okay, great. So thanks, folks, for having us on tonight. There's a couple of items that we wanted to discuss. I believe Christine is the project proponent there. Christine Katzner, as well as Joe Kelly, I believe, are on and on mute. But so if there's any questions, actually, I'm sorry, I do see Joe also. So there's a couple items. So spring is sprung almost, right? And we're about to go into a very good time of year for us to kind of button up certain issues related to the project on off of Loudville Road, Stepler Crossing. So specific to that, there was I guess let's call it 3 buckets, right? So there was the enforcement bucket that I believe kind of left off with some work having been done, some questions related to the stream, and wanted to be able to discuss that with you briefly this evening. In addition, I believe there was an email submitted by the Homeowners Association, so we wanted to talk a little bit about the typical closeout of these types of projects, ensuring not only to the Conservation Commission, but the homeowners as well, that the proponent understands that they have a number of items and punch list related issues that they'll be dealing with over the course of the next season here. I think there was an impression that because a lot of the units were sold fairly rapidly, that the project was done. The project is not done. I believe there is one last unit to sell, but the site development project, as well as a lot of the compliance pieces, are still left to be addressed. And we're aware of that. The proponent is aware of that, and we're happy to discuss that tonight. And then the last bucket is the stormwater basin, and what we found kind of during construction, and some adjustments that we want to make there too. So if it pleases the commission, we will attack those in any order you see fit.
Any recommendation, Cassie?
I would say maybe the best place to start is the enforcement order, and I can give a brief understanding about where we left off with that. Is we've been waiting until the spring to reevaluate how the plantings have come in both along the slope where the reconstruction work was completed and also down in the sediment accumulation area where it was cleared away. That's directly in the BBW, how the plantings and the regular native vegetation has come back. There's a question of what the commission would like to require in terms to see for confirming that that has come back sufficiently and that it's not putting invasives in there. So typically what the commission would require for other replication areas projects is 2 growing seasons, showing that to be the case. And then the other piece then would be the in-stream mitigation, because I've not been successful in reaching out to, I've reached out, but getting a response from the Dr. Hatch from UMass, and I'm happy to continue to try to do that. But I don't know if this would be an appropriate time to discuss if in the sense that if I don't hear back from her, what the alternative potentially could be, what the commission would like. So maybe that's a good place to start there. Do we want 2 growing seasons, and what do we want to do for in-stream mitigation if I don't get a response?
Sorry, I blinked out for about 10 seconds. 2 growing seasons for the plantings in the area that was disturbed.
Yeah, where the violation happened. So not the whole site, like the grass and things like that, but it would be the slope space and then this area below where they cleared out the sediment. And yeah, typically when we do wetland restoration or replication, at least the commission wants to see 2 growing seasons.
Can I just change gears slightly for a second and ask how the slope stabilization is looking with recent rains?
I'm sorry, I had a little alarm that went off, but I spoke with Ryan Nelson from our office, who's been conducting the SWIP inspections. He was most recent there, actually, I believe today. He said that the area was stabilized, that vegetation had popped, but it's, it is early spring. My guess is what would be logical if it pleases the commission is to do a quick site visit out there. Maybe in a week or 2 or a few weeks. There was some discussion, and I apologize, this is a little bit separate, but in the email I read this evening from the homeowners association, there was a discussion of a couple slopes they had concerns with as they walked it with their landscaper. So if it pleases the commission, what we would do is schedule a site visit. Maybe we wait a little bit to let some veg pop, or we can look at it as soon as you would like. It seems like the snow, knock on wood, the snow is hopefully gone, and we can get out there with you at your convenience.
No signs though of erosion or anything unstable on that slope that we asked to have repaired?
According to Ryan Nelson today, no, but there was some questions from the homeowners association today, and I think they're just wanting to make sure that things are stable. But we'd be happy to walk it with either Cassie as your representative or members of the commission, however you'd like.
Okay.
If I can just add one quick thing.
Go ahead, yeah.
So this is Joe Kelly, one of the project owners. So regarding the HOA letters, so we've been aware of that since the fall. So, and the HOA is aware that we are going to, take care of those issues. We did a site walk late fall in November with our site contractors. So we are very aware of those concerns, and we have walked it. I do agree we should all get back out there, but just so you know that this has been a matter we're aware of. We have responded. I think they just submitted this just to have a matter of record, which is great. But we have been in contact with the HOA board, and we are aware.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Sorry about that. I just saw that today, so that's why I was bringing it up.
So what they're talking about, this letter with the HOA is something that I received about like an hour ago they copied me on it, which was nice, but they were concerned about, didn't seem like the concern was focused on the repaired slope, really. It seems like just generally, they described the erosion controls along the back there. Generally, they were concerned that one, that they weren't in good condition, and then 2, it seemed like the slopes behind that within the site not being fully stabilized. That was an area that we looked at in the past when they came to try to ask to request to remove erosion controls before. We decided no, because that area wasn't yet fully stabilized, essentially. And my understanding is none of those controls have been removed yet. And then they were concerned about behind unit 9, there's that kind of outlet right on the corner of the controls. Might not remember, but it's been
Where in the site plan is unit 9?
I want to say it's like in the middle. Does that seem correct? Rob and believe it's kind of in the middle, more a little to the
off the cul-de-sac, I believe, off the cul-de-sac to the left in the back, I believe. Yep.
So-
13 and 14.
Correct, yes.
If they were describing any sediment-laden water leaving the site or failures of the controls, but I was planning to go do a site visit tomorrow morning. Okay. I didn't have time to go before this meeting. So it's kind of separate, but it's something that like we'll need to talk about further and go on with. But it didn't seem like to me, Rob and Philippe, that their email was concerned about the slope restoration associated with the stormwater, with the enforcement order.
Yeah.
Correct. That's my understanding as well. Yeah, I believe it was a couple separate areas, which we're happy to look at. I did confirm with Ryan that the erosion controls are in place. So anything that they're experiencing, I believe, is within the limit of work, which is great. Not that it doesn't need to be touched up, but it sounds like Joe's already on top of that.
Yeah, and I would like to see what's going on with the restoration area plantings. I do think it makes sense to give those another couple weeks so that we can really get a sense for I think at that point we'll be able to get a better sense for survival and how things are looking. So maybe we can try and schedule that a couple weeks out.
That'd be great. Yeah, the weather looks like it's gonna start warming up, but who knows, right? So yeah, we're available at your convenience. Today is kind of just a check-in, so to speak, so that we can let you know where we're at and address anything that's coming up.
Yep. What are folks' thoughts on, Cassie's correct, we usually do a 2 seasons of monitoring and reports on mitigation. Do we want to do the same thing here? I don't think we had anything spelled out so far in the plan, right?
No, not yet.
I think that makes sense because, the stability of the slope is also going to fold into our observations of what the stream is looking like.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that has undergone a lot of just natural change over the last few storm events.
Right.
Yeah, through the chair, if there is one thing to note, just as for informational purposes, it appears that at least 3 or 4 times after because we've been monitoring the site pretty well, both Ryan and also Philippe and I. It appears that area down near the stream is inundated on occasion. Basically inundated with flooding. So I don't know what effect that's had, but it definitely will be interesting to look this spring as the water's a little bit high. I do believe at least more than one occasion that we've documented that area does flood, and it likely comes up into the area that was originally disturbed. The good news is they got the material out of there before that, but I'm not sure what's happening with the vegetation as that area gets inundated. So it'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of 2 years as like a target, or if like things look great after a year, and you're like, you can't even tell anything happened. It's like, okay, well, I do another year. But if 2 years go by and it's not good, then it's like, well,
Yeah.
That's kind of how
To clarify for the commission, we're not anticipating requesting any sort of certificate of compliance until an appropriate time. So, I know that there's this, an enforcement order is one item, obviously, but the order of conditions as well. We want to make sure that everything's functioning properly, and we don't want the homeowners to think that we're, just because the units are sold that, everybody's taking off. I think an important item for you to know that I was not even aware of is that I believe it's in the homeowners association documents, the developer has, I believe, up to 6 years. Not that they will ever need that, hopefully, but they have up to 6 years to complete and retain the development rights, and any associated, finishing or adjusting or punch list items can be done up to 6 years based on the documents. But again, we're not in a rush to close this out. We want to make sure it's all properly working before we go forward with anything like that.
Yeah. And it sounded like there was also an issue with the basin you spoke to in your letter.
I did. Yep. Or read it. Yep.
More time to address. So.
Yeah. So just a little background on the basin. So the basin is arguably till last fall had been operating as a temporary sedimentation basin. which we typically have them under excavate. And then, as we get closer to having the site buttoned up, which towards the end of last fall, most of the site, except for kind of the end of the cul-de-sac and a couple of those, the area surrounding a couple of those units, was fairly well buttoned up. So we started looking at removing the sedimentation that was in the basin, taking care of any blinding that may have happened during construction. And then from there, we started to look and monitor the basin and its function. We noticed that it was draining a little bit slow. We did some test pits. We found a restrictive layer a few feet below the basin. It's kind of more of a silty clay type layer that was not encountered in our test pits. So what we did is we dug a couple additional test pits. Philippe had done an analysis, and we looked at some solutions for kind of getting the basin functioning differently or better. And I'll let Philippe speak to the specifics, but we spoke with Dan, your city engineer, Dan Murphy, let him know what was going on, talked to Cassie briefly and explained that what we would like to do is adjust the basin, get information to you and Dan, adjust the basin, arguably not drastically. We have a couple different options for adjusting that, but basically raising the bottom of the basin, increasing the size of it. And there is the potential that we could put an outlet on it to help it dewater during multiple storm events. But I'll let Philippe speak to the details, or if in general. We're not married to any specific idea. We have a couple ideas that we broached with Dan. And then, the idea is to make sure that we adjust it this spring, get it stable. And then once we've have it stable, monitor it for a period of time and make sure it doesn't, everything, is as we want it to be before we would ever request a certificate of compliance. Did I miss anything? Or
No, that was a pretty good summarization. So essentially, the bottom elevation was, the bottom of the test pits was about anywhere from 2 to 3 feet below the finished grade of the basin, the proposed finished grade of the basin. But, through construction, we encountered that restrictive layer, in and around the basin, just below, where the bottom of our test pits were located, which is probably contributing to the, just the overall infiltration rate of that basin. So looking at different options, raising the bottom, gaining some separation to that restrictive layer, increasing the volume to make up for that. So, going horizontally to make up for the additional separation on the bottom, and potentially looking at an outlet scenario that would help just keep the water down in the basin and ready for these consecutive storms that seem to be happening almost every other week now.
What are you seeing for length to drain on the basin now?
So it goes down before last week, which I think we got 4.5 inches of rain over 8 days last week. It was down to, we had about a foot of water down in the bottom of the basin. And I think some of the, the silty water can be affecting the rate of infiltration. But, generally we want to be able to ensure that there's capacity in the basin, for consecutive storms. So still get infiltration, but potentially have an overflow somewhere in the middle to just help the water just drain out slowly through some sort of orifice structure.
So is it holding water for longer than 48 hours now? It sounds like it.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of how long it is taking to drain, or we haven't had a dry enough period to know the answer to that?
It's a good question. Well, it's a good question. So we monitor it during the fall. We monitored it over the winter. We didn't have too much frozen ground, believe it or not, through the winter based on our observations. But I would say it's it's probably close to double that. You know, just to be, you know, with a conservative estimate, I would say it's taking quite a bit of time. So we want to ensure, like Philippe said, we want to make sure there's a capacity there for the storm events, one, but also we want to make sure we're meeting the, you know, the dewatering or the infiltration requirements. So we want to maintain the infiltration that we've anticipated because the materials above this restricted layer are great. So we have these really sandy materials, and then you know, about 3 feet below the, I think it's about 3 feet below the current basin bottom is where this restrictive layer exists. So we're looking at you know, getting away from any sort of mounding that might be happening, raise the basin bottom, increase the overall surface area. The beauty of, well, I say the beauty, but I guess the lucky situation is that this can be done without going really into any additional jurisdictional areas. We can, we've looked at a couple scenarios where the basin gets increased, but it doesn't get increased into the riverfront. And it would, again, kind of get increased to the areas that are available outside jurisdiction. So we can provide, you know, probably 2 sketches to the commission, 2 different options, one without an outlet and one with an outlet. And again, to Philippe's point, the outlet that we would be talking about would be just a very small orifice in a small outlet control structure that could slowly dewater the basin. So we have a couple options for that, which we're hoping or we're thinking might not be necessary, but we're going to continue to monitor it and make sure this is operating as we one, you know, expect, and 2, make sure it's compliant.
Okay. When do you expect to have those ideas more formalized for us?
I would say by the next commission meeting, that would be great. What we would like to do, I'd really like to make sure we're doing this in the springtime, because, you know, it's not a drastic, you know, it's not a big endeavor to actually make the adjustments to the basin itself. But more importantly, I really like to see us hitting the growing season in the spring, and then again in the fall, and then having the ability to monitor it. It's been difficult to monitor over the course of the last year, just because there, like Philippe said, there is some sediment still coming into the basin. In the fall, there was a significant amount because it, again, was acting as a sediment basin, or, you know, from a, you know, a construction phase standpoint. But so I would say we would be happy to provide for the next meeting some sketches that you guys could review. We'd be happy to meet with Dan Murphy ahead of time, make sure he's comfortable with what our thoughts are. And again, just get a better separation from that restrictive layer and get some more volume out of the available areas outside of jurisdiction.
Okay.
Great.
Sort of site visit before the next meeting to see what it looks like.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, and hopefully the rain will stop.
Great.
Where would the proposed outlet go to for the dewatering?
We have an area that we can show on a sketch. There's an area, I'm trying to think of what unit number it is, but to the, I guess to the, I'm going to say it's
14.
right near unit
13 and
14.
14.
Yeah, there's a
We don't have
little,
a plan in front of us, so that doesn't mean much. Can you give us a cardinal direction, or towards the road, towards the slope,
towards
towards
the
the buildings?
slope, towards the slope, from the basin, kind of northwest. Is that Philippe? Is that northwest? I don't know.
Northwest. Yes. Yep.
Stand corrected. We have a map.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a map. Others do.
There's a little IVW that you'll probably see. It would be fairly proximate to that. We're thinking there's a nice little pocket that's fairly flat. We could put a very small outlet. This would, again, would be just to aid in dewatering as necessary. We still look to get the recharge rates and everything that we were looking for. So again, getting it away from that restrictive layer, and then, helping it a little bit with the dewatering aspects.
Okay. Where's the riverfront line up there?
Yeah, it would be out of the riverfront, but it would be in proximity to that isolated wetland there. It's very small. It's probably under a couple hundred square feet. Oh, there we go.
Oh, great. Can you show us which one is the riverfront line on here?
Okay, so it's a little bit small because I'm
Double dash. It's the double dash line is the riverfront line, and the double dot is the 100-foot buffer.
So the one I'm tracing right now is the riverfront.
Okay, got it.
And then the 100-foot buffer is out, well, this one's associated with this wetland. There's this 100-foot buffer.
And then that one that comes through the middle of the.
Yeah, so if you see that little isolated wetland to the top left of unit 14, we would be just to the right of that outside riverfront, but adjacent to the IVW. That's in the event of utilizing the outlet.
Okay. All right.
So as mentioned, we had discussed that with Dan. We're gonna we have some preliminary sketches. We'll formalize those. We can get those to your commission and to Dan probably by the end of this week, and then happy to answer any questions prior to the next meeting. But we'd be happy to attend.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
As far as the site visit goes, the next meeting is the 25th. We wanted to give this a couple of weeks to start to hopefully green up. I would like to see it, and for me, that would be a lot easier to accomplish on a weekend. So I wonder if others would be available to do a site visit on that preceding weekend, whatever that is, the 23rd,
24th.
I should check my calendar.
Yeah, Sunday should be 24th.
I know I'm away that weekend, but we would certainly accommodate through someone in our office, either Ryan, Philippe, or someone that's knowledgeable about the project.
Okay.
My entire life is occupied by kids' sports ball these days. So.
Same.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Well, too.
I also might be able to attend a weekend. I'm not sure yet if I could or couldn't, but I'll know my availability closer to that. But either way, I'll just do a site visit very close to whenever, probably that Monday or whenever you guys, so I can get my own pictures for the records.
Would that work for other members of the commission if we did either Saturday or Sunday morning?
That can work. I can make it work. Yep.
Yeah, I can make
Preference?
Saturday.
Okay. What time? And I guess just to put this idea in folks' head, there's another site that I would also like to see that's coming up. So maybe we'll try and double these up.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a future NOI coming, 120 East Street.
Would people want to do 8? And then we could do another hop over to the other side.
But the other side, I'll have to double check with Becky.
Right, just make sure that works.
That's probably gonna be fine.
We can go later too if
How about 9?
9.
A couple of years ago, I would have said, "Oh, it's 6," but now it's like
How about
that's
4?
not even going to work. Yeah.
Well, 8 is the oldest then. So 9 is
That doesn't make much. They're 9. Is that a consensus? Okay.
Sure.
23rd.
Rob, if you could let your office know and arrange for somebody to meet us at 9 on the 23rd.
9 a.m. on the 23rd. Thank you. We'll definitely be there, and we'll get you some sketches ahead of time. We'll have talked to Dan hopefully, and hopefully we'll have some time to address any, we can always look at the other areas that the homeowners have questions on, because I would hate for you to get riddled separately with different questions. Maybe we can look at them all at the same time. If you
Yeah,
have
that
time.
would be great. Yep.
Great.
Maybe you could put together just a little list of us for us in advance of things that we should be planning to see while we're there.
Yeah, an agenda, so to speak. I can do that.
Yep. Great.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
We appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
We got a little mixed around. We were talking about the enforcement order and then we started talking about the stormwater basin, which is totally fine. I don't know if we want to, if we have more questions about the stormwater basin or if we're kind of good until the next meeting. We want to go back to enforcement. Okay. And the 2 remaining items were Do we want to require 2 growing seasons? It sounds like we want to just see what the results are of the first growing season. That will help you determine if you need to or not.
Sure.
And
Yep.
then, and then the other piece was the in-stream mitigation.
Let's see the site visit and see what it looks like down
Yeah.
at the bottom. We don't know if it's all blown out or could be completely different.
I mean, one of the things that we talked about, because it's, as this has all been progressing, we've talked about the fact that whatever was there in the immediate aftermath has certainly changed from all of the storm events we've had since, but that doesn't negate the fact that there should be some sort of response for the material that was released into the stream. So it may be that we just need to, we've been trying to reach out and get some input from others who kind of specialize in this as to how we might do some kind of related assessment for broader improvements to the stream area as mitigation there. And we've not been having much success. So I guess maybe my proposal is that when we're there at the site, we also, one of the things we add to that list is just to be looking on our own and thinking about what potential opportunities there might be for some kind of enhancement or further restoration work that could be the sort of compensatory action for that.
Okay. Yeah, I think a site visit will tell us a lot. I really haven't gone down that slope since some of these flood events. So.
Yeah, and I don't know, Cassie, have you been down there at all since?
I've been down like kind of just immediately to that sediment area. I'm trying to think last time I was there. It's been a minute, like maybe like a month or so.
But definitely much more recently than I have.
I would think that's yes.
Okay. All right. So that'll be our plan. We will
Great.
meet on the 23rd. And we can address all those issues then.
With Mass Conservation Commission, do they have possibly any examples of things that other cities have done in response to this kind of a violation?
Cassie and I had already reached out to Scott Jackson, who is usually very much with his thumb on the pulse of what's going on across the state with commissions. And he didn't have any direct comparisons or anything to give us as a reference point. So we've tried a lot of channels. I think we're kind of on our own to think this one through. Yeah.
In a regulatory sense, it's the commission's discretion, right? What they want to require. But yeah, it's a good question.
And then is there more, Cassie, that we need to talk about with regards to the homeowners association piece?
So yeah, let's see, what was the other piece we talked about? Well, I guess the other piece was, I didn't know if I don't know how much this is related to homeowners, but typically, or rather, the question was if the project managers now needed more clarity on what might be required specifically for the certificate of occupancy for the last building. The commission has been in communication with the building department who would issue that certificate of occupancy. It's not the same as a certificate of compliance. Certificate of compliance, what the commission issues to close out the order of conditions and say it's done. And everything is stable and they've met all the conditions. The certificate of occupancy allows someone to move into that space, as far as I understand it. And we have been in communication with the building department to say, hey, don't do that until you've checked in with us because of this enforcement order and these outstanding items. But I know it's a concern for the project managers about getting that and what is required to allow that to be released. So I don't know if we're at a place that based on what we just discussed that we can say that now or not. But yeah, that's the other question. I mean, the developers will still be beholden to the project in that all the things I described earlier, like the agreement with the homeowners association tying in there for 6 years, and the order conditions will certainly still exist in the stormwater permit and the associated bond. But I wanted to get your opinion before any determination was made.
Do you know off the top of your head, Cassie? I don't know why you would, what the value of the stormwater bond is.
Oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure I know. I think it was, Rob, you might know, or Billy, but I want to say it was 178,000.
That sounds right. Yeah, it was definitely over north of 150.
I have the letter here actually. All right. So that's to be held obviously until the full stormwater system has been approved. So that kind of takes care of that piece. I think We have every reason to believe that the restoration related to the enforcement order is on the right track, but I think it would be good to have our site visit before we conclude that. And then that could be potentially the trigger to release the building department to issue their certificate. Does that make sense?
What you find at the next, about the growing season stuff? Sorry, I missed it for a second.
I'd like to have our site visit and because it seems like everything's moving in the right direction. But I'd just like to see it, I think, before we make that call.
Makes sense. I'm just catching up my notes here. Okay.
And I don't know, Rob, if you may already be planning this, but I think maybe you did say this, but does it make sense to have somebody from the homeowners association there for the site visit as well?
So I think so. I don't want to speak for the proponent, but I think it's better for the commission. Like I said, if you're getting stuff from all different angles, I think it's better for everybody to understand, because a lot of the homeowners probably don't understand the process of closeout and what that there's an order of conditions in place, bonds in place, requirements for the developer to finish the project. So unless I hear an objection from Mr. Kelly, I would think that would be a good idea. Maybe just a representative rather than, not too many people, hopefully.
No, I'd almost prefer a follow-up after with them. My only concern is, as Rob mentioned, I think it's going to be very specific. We're happy to work with the HOA. But I agree, if you feel strongly of the HOA there, that I think they need to identify one representative, or maybe just the board, which is 3 people. I just want to make sure we keep separate what's required for compliance versus, what's left to be buttoned up in the project, which we've met countless times on, explaining that to the board, HOA board.
Okay, I'll leave that to you all to work out however you want to arrange that. But just to the extent that they are going to be involved, if you would just let us know and then include whatever those items might be on the agenda that you're going to put together for us, so we know what we're covering that day.
Absolutely. And so we'll do meeting minutes from our site walk, and we can circulate that to the homeowners association as well. I do believe there's direct dialogue between the board and the developer.
Great. Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Anything further on this item, Cassie?
Not on my end. Just that, as long as it's clear to the project managers, hopefully that was helped to answer some of your questions, and then we have a good plan going forward. But as far as I understand it, that answered what I had known to be the questions on the table.
If you don't mind, if I could ask through the chair, if I could just ask the proponent, Joe, when are you planning on closing on that last unit? Is that coming up?
I would say we're shooting for May. We're wrapping it up in a few weeks. So I would say the end of April will be the soonest.
Okay. So it gives us time to look at the slope and in the restoration area and everything, to take a look and hope, if needed, button anything up before then.
Yeah. And just to clarify, we will reach out to the HOA board, just asking for one rep. We just want to keep it small.
That sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Returning then to regular agenda order. Cassie, are there any other enforcement actions that have updates?
No, pretty much everything. We're just returning in the spring, to see how the other restoration works have gone.
Okay. Open space updates. Anything on Echo Dale?
No, but I will be reaching out to them because I know we're getting
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.